So, to give more context to how things were in my life, both my parents came from big families. My dad was one of like 10 as well. So both my parents had huge families. And my dad's family was from like the city. And my mom's family was from the country. And we ended up, where we lived was actually in the country. So we lived near my mother's entire like sibling, like all her siblings. There were 2 siblings that lived out of state. So out of the 10, there were 8 of them that all lived within an hour of each other. But we had a weird dynamic with our family because my dad, I mean, being that he was manipulative and that he had groomed my mother before he ever groomed me, let's take a moment to realize something too. He tried dating other women after they got divorced the first time. And he shared with me that it didn't work out. I learned later in life that the reason it didn't work out was because he couldn't find another woman that was as vulnerable and easy to manipulate as my mother. So my dad was a straight up predator, like his whole life. It wasn't just something that he decided to do once he was married. No, like he had been searching for a woman like my mom, someone that he could take advantage of, use and abuse and coerce. And while yes, my mom had free thinking, she could make choices for herself, she had the mind of a simple person. Like, I don't like this term, but she was handicapped. Like, she was retarded in many ways. Like, think about this. She'd never heard a sound until she was in her 30s. She'd never heard even the sound of her own voice. She could feel it vibrating in her body, but that was it. She had no concept of anything. Like, I know the internet is coming from my mom in a big way, but please do this little self-practice. Ask yourself, is it possible that she was also preyed on and a victim in this story? See how that feels. Sit with it. Ask yourself, can both be true? Can she be a predator and can she be a victim? I know that to be the truth. I know that to be true, and I can hold that. And I can have 2 experiences. I can look at my mother and see that she was a victim and that she was a predator. So back to the story about my parents having large families and we lived separate. So my dad's family was from the city about 2 hours away. And we didn't see them. We never went on road trips to go visit grandma and grandpa or any aunts and uncles that lived in the Detroit area. I just got a ping in my chest when I said where I live. But we didn't do that. My dad's siblings were never close with him. They just weren't. I understand why now. My dad was always a creep. My dad was always a creepy guy. I found out later in life that he had actually been in prison when he was younger. The details of that are insignificant for what we're talking about here, but just understand that my dad had a very seedy past, right? He was severely abused as a child by his siblings. He had older brothers and they molested and raped him as a child. It's what he knew. That was his lived experience. And he was traumatized deeply. My mom ended up sharing that with me later. She said, in her own way, her expression and body gestures and facial expressions and her limited capacity to speak, she could get it out. And she said, your dad, his brother, did that to him. She would share with me. And it was his older brother who lives, I don't know if he's still alive, but he lived in Georgia as an adult. He got married, I think, here and then moved to Georgia. And he was a reverend or a preacher, some type of minister of some kind in Georgia. And he had severely raped and molested my father for his whole childhood. And there was another older sibling who did the same thing. But where I'm going with this is I'm giving you context to help you to understand. While yes, my parents did some really fucked up stuff. They did. I get that. I realize it. I lived it. I lived it. I understand how how awful it was. But it took me decades to get where I'm at. And I'm really happy to be here because I have this understanding and this compassion that for myself first, and then I'm able to extend it into this dynamic that is really, it's layered, it's really fucked up. But I'm able to pick it up and look at it from all four sides and just kind of turn it around and be like, okay, both things can be true. My dad can be a predator and he can also be a victim. And those are interchangeable. Like in his story growing up, he wasn't the predator, he was the victim. He grew into a predator and then he went into other relationships with other people and then he continued to be the predator. He made choices because of the patterns that developed in him from the abuse he sustained as a child. And so, and my mother also, she was abused sexually as a kid. Right? Like, when you've been abused and preyed on as a child, you start to carry the frequency of a prey, and predators can find you. Like, you quite literally have the energetic signature of somebody who's easy to manipulate, easy to take advantage of, because you're wounded. You're literally, energetically, you're bleeding out, and these predators are like, I can smell a wounded rabbit nearby, and they go looking for you. And here's the part that is hard to hear. As prey, you're looking for the predator because it's what you know. So while yes, the predator is seeking you out, the prey is also seeking the predator because the dynamic is one is looking for the other, right? You know abuse. You're looking for it. It feels comfortable. It's that shoe that fits. And it's just, I know it's hard to hear. It's fucked up. It totally is. I totally get that. But in my story, two things can be true at the same time because it's my story. I have the capacity to hold both truths at the same time without losing myself. And so back to the family dynamic of not really knowing my dad's family. We never visited them, hardly. I can remember we visited them one time when I was probably 7 that I remember. I mean, I have a picture with them when I was a baby, but I don't remember that. I was like a newborn infant. And then we went to visit them around Easter time. Isn't that funny? Oof, I remember that. And then I remember the next time we visited them was for my grandfather's funeral. So that was when all of my dad's siblings, he had one sister and he was one of 10. So he had 8 brothers himself and then a sister. The sister was the eldest and her name was Rita. And I remember she looked just like my dad, but a girl. And I remember meeting her for the first time at my dad's funeral and being like, wow, I didn't know my dad had a sister. That was the first time I had ever learned that. So that was it was impactful for me. Later in my story, I'm going to bring my Aunt Rita back into the picture because she played a very pivotal role in a very significant moment in my history, all the way from Georgia. Yeah. So growing up, we spent, anytime there was a holiday or anytime there was, grandma and grandpa had a birthday, or if an aunt and uncle had a birthday, or if there was a party of some kind happening, we got together a lot, like all the time. It was like at least once or twice a month, it seemed like we were having a big family get together. And, a huge Mexican family, like eight of her siblings lived in the area. So, everyone had their own family and they all had kids. And my mom was she had a late start to her married life. So she didn't have children until she was in her 40s. And so since she was like in the middle, I think, of order, she had older siblings who had children. Let me get this right. Her youngest sister has nieces that are the same age. So like my mom's eldest brother had kids that were the same age as my grandmother's youngest daughter. So there's a range of people. And so by the time I came around, I was the youngest by quite a bit. There were a few other cousins that maybe lagged behind me, like maybe 5 years, but they lived further away. We didn't really spend time together. So I was the youngest by a lot. I had cousins that had children that were older than me. So it was kind of like this, I really didn't have any cousins to play with. They were all way older. And so whenever we'd get together with family, we kind of were like the cast off family. Like maybe someone else can relate to this, but you're kind of like on the outside. You're invited to things, but people kind of hope you don't come, and they don't really want to interact with you because it's awkward. And I never understood why. Like, I knew we were different. Like, I knew because my dad was so health conscious and my mom was deaf and she was odd and awkward, and she was also diabetic, so she had limitations of what she could do and eat. And my dad was just odd, and I knew that about my dad. Early in life, I knew that he was different. I knew that. But I didn't necessarily, I didn't judge him for it. I didn't. I loved my dad. I honestly loved my dad. I loved my mom deep down, but it was harder for me to love my mom openly because there was never a respite from her pain. It was constant, even to the point where my dad would be in the other room and she'd look at me and she'd be like, she would just like kind of like bully and threaten me like behind the scenes. And if he would come around the corner, she'd be like, and he'd just be like, what the fuck? Like, okay. She was mean girl and me hard, but she had the mind of a child and she was really upset and she had no way to talk this out or get any of this energy that she had in her body out of herself in a healthy way. So she put it all on me, right? I was this outlet for whatever she needed to get out. And so we would be at family gatherings and I just felt like an outsider. And then my dad would eventually, because I didn't have the best health, right? I was always I either always had a cold, I always had a urinary tract infection, or I couldn't go to the bathroom, so I always had a tummy ache. And Esther was sensitive. She couldn't sit in the back seat of the car. She had to sit in the front seat. She would get sick. My dad would have this whole persona of me developed. I got sick in the car unless I sat in the front seat. I couldn't eat certain foods or I'd get really sick. I had a tummy ache all the time. I always had a headache. I couldn't go to the bathroom, so I had always had a urinary tract infection. He had developed me into this. I really don't think I had all those things wrong with me. I just think it was something that was convenient for him to use as like this scapegoat, like an easy card to play, like, oh, well, we can't stay long. Esther's not feeling well. And I would get the cue from my dad and I'd be like, oh, yeah, I don't feel good. I was like a little puppet as a kid, just whatever I needed to do to appease my caregiver, my dad mostly. My mom, a therapist I had in my late 20s, I want to say, she helped me to identify, let me go back and eat my words a bit. I do believe in therapy. I do. I think it's helpful. In short, like, I'm not saying don't go to therapy. Go for as long as you need, man. Like I did. I wasn't getting the help I needed because I couldn't be honest with myself. I couldn't be honest with the therapist because any therapist I ever had couldn't hold space for me. I could feel energetically when I would start to share and be vulnerable and tell them unhinged shit that was hard to say and they couldn't hold space for me. I could feel their bodies like, oh fuck, this girl's fucked up. I could feel it. Like, I'm an energetically sensitive person. I'm a freaking channel, for Christ's sake. Like, hello, I feel shit. I feel shit bigly. And so I was highly attuned to the biggest threat in the room. And if you're the only person in the room with me, I can feel the threat. I don't want to be judged or shamed any further than I already am. So I would just not. I'd be like, yeah, this isn't a safe place for me to be completely honest with this therapist. But there was a moment in my life, in my 20s, at one time, I just said something. And she was like, the relationship between you and your mother, the reason you feel the way that you feel is because you never bonded with her. You never had bonding with her. The reason she felt like a nanny that hated me. Like, she wasn't like a loving babysitter or a loving nanny. She was like this nanny who was like, I'm just here because I need a paycheck. Like, she literally treated me like it was constant abuse with her. And so that was hard. That was super fucking hard. And so whenever we would get around my mom's family, my mom would, I wasn't warm with my mom. I wasn't like, oh, mommy, and like sit on her lap like all the other little girls must do or whatever. I would want to be by my dad. And they all kind of treated me like I was what's wrong with her? Why doesn't she want to be with Nana? They had this image of my mother that she was like this saintly person because she was handicapped, and she was outwardly kind to everyone. My mom is genuinely a beautiful person. Just, she was never capable of shining her kindness on me because of all of the abuse and her resentment and her jealousy, and she was complacent in it. So she was a participant. She hated herself for that. Where's that hate going to go when you don't have an outlet? It's going to go on the person that you think is causing this for you. And that was me to her. That's what I was to her. And so my aunts and uncles weren't really warm toward me because they held a grudge. They were like, fuck this kid. She's not nice to our sister who's a saint, right? And my mom to everyone else was that. She was wonderful. She was wonderful with other people's children. She was like, all through my childhood, if somebody had a baby, like if a cousin had a baby, or if some close family member's friend had a baby and they needed help, like maybe they needed help with childcare, my mom was always the one volunteered, and my mom gladly started to babysit other people's children, and she was so wonderful with them. And I remember that was the first time I was like, babies, they're so, I was just like over the moon, like babies. And I just thought it was so fun. And my mom was beautiful with them. I was like over the moon seeing how good she was, and it made me feel good. I was like, I had these moments where I was like, I would fantasize. I would go in this little dream world where I would be like, look how nice my mom is. Look how sweet she is with this baby. I bet she was like that with me, even though I knew better. That was never my experience. But I would tell myself, yeah, remember when mom was nice to you? And I would have this like little fantasy, like little skit play in my head, play out like how you play Barbies, you have this whole backstory. I would like gaslight myself or like come up with this like, yeah, remember that time that mom did this special thing with us and, went on a field trip with us? And my mom never did that stuff. My mom never went on field trips with us. She never came to our classroom for our birthdays and handed out treats like all the other moms did. Like, we didn't have that. And so I had this fantasy in my head of what it would feel like to be loved by my mom. And I got to witness it through her being with other people's children, and it felt good. That's what when I say there's beauty in my story, I'm talking about this moment. This is one of those moments. It's a glimmer. It gave me hope. And I would cling to that deeply because I needed it. My reality was dark. The constant abuse from my mom, and then the constant molestation from my dad, my little brain and my little body had to figure something out quick to like not short circuit every moment of the day. And so I did. I would have these glimmers, and I would just fantasize, like fan fiction. I would write the story, like, oh, this was cool. Mom did this with me today, and I pretended I had a twin sister. And anyway, I had a beautiful relationship with the idea, and it was lovely. But because we weren't really in the fold of the family, we didn't have anybody in our life. Like, the only time we saw them was when we would go to my mom's, my grandma and grandpa's house for these family get-togethers. And it wasn't like nobody kept in touch with us because my mom can't talk on the phone, So like, unless somebody was driving to our house to like sit and have a visit, we didn't communicate or like have anything to do with them ever. And so we didn't have this relationship. I didn't really know my aunts and uncles or my cousins. They were like acquaintances. Like, I would see in passing and be like, hey, I know your name. And that would be the extent of it. And so because we were so isolated like that, as things progressed, when the abuse started getting more significant, as I started to get older, take a moment for a breath. There was a significant moment when I was 9 during summer break. my dad, let me go back just a little bit. When I was probably in like first grade, my dad started telling me about problems he was having with my mom, problems he was having with finances, problems he was having with his job, just all these different, like all the things you would talk to your spouse about, like, you know, how he was feeling, like if he was angry that day, or if his boss made him mad, or like these little things that normally like a husband and a wife would maybe talk about. My dad was telling me about it. And he would say things like, yeah, I don't know what we're gonna do. I don't get paid until like, and he'd give a number, like a couple weeks. He'd say, I don't get paid for a couple weeks and I only have $20. I don't know what we're gonna do for food. And I would be like, I would be terrified. I was like, oh my God, and he would say, yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna pay the rent or the car, you know, put gas in the car. And he would tell me these things. And I would just be like, oh my God, we're gonna live on the street. Like, we're gonna be homeless. We won't have a place to live. Cause he would say, yeah, if I can't pay, like, what's gonna happen? Like, we're gonna get kicked out. And he would say all this stuff to me. And I would just be like, I didn't even know what to do. I was just freaking out inside. Like, I know that now I was freaking out, but then I would just sit there and be like, oh, okay. And I would ask, like, what can I do? And he'd say, and he would pet me and like tell me I was okay. And I'd sit on his lap and he'd just like fondle me. And it was like, I was like his comfort, like his like comfort of a place to dump his problems. And then I would also comfort him by not letting him, but by sitting on his lap and letting him pet me and letting him do what he needed to do. And I would just sit there locked up, just locked up. And then he would say things like, yeah, I don't know how much longer I'm gonna let your mom live here. And I was like, what do you mean? Because I was still scared to be by myself. Like, yeah, I liked it when he was at work and I didn't have a bond with her, but I still felt scared because, you know, in like first grade, I couldn't do a lot of stuff. Like, I didn't know how to cook food or like do laundry yet and things like that. So I was like, I was very aware of all the things that she did do. I was aware, and I knew that she had a role in keeping the house. I was aware. I was hyper fucking aware of all the things that were happening at all time. So for me, I was like, okay, well, if dad doesn't have money to buy food, and then there's also nobody to cook food, and then we have nowhere to live, and then he doesn't want her to live here anymore anyway. So like, I remember just feeling like I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't, like, my vision got narrow, and I'd just be like, holy fuck, what's gonna happen? Are we gonna live on the street? Are we gonna be homeless? What will people at school say about me? What does this mean? Like, what's gonna happen? And I was really scared, like terrified. And he would say things like, I don't think mom's gonna live here much longer. He's like, you're getting old enough. He says, you already do a lot of things that mom used to do, but I think it's time for you to learn how to do more things that mom does, so we can get rid of her. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I was like, because I would say, is there anything I can do to help? And eventually he would say things like, yeah, I think there is. And he would tell me I could do this and I could learn how to do this. And, you know, and just, it was just like more grooming toward, I lost so much autonomy and the ability to say no, because I knew that I didn't want to die. Like, everything was, you would die. Like I said in previous video, there would be moments after he would abuse me. I remember this one time in particular, it was during the day. I was sitting on my bed, on the end of my bed with my little legs dangling over the side. And I was agitated, like I was a shaky kind of kid. I had all this energy to move. I was like always freaked out. And so I remember just like having my legs like shake and like fiddle my feet and let them hang there. And my dad would kneel down in front of me. In this moment, he kneeled down in front of me and he would hold both my hands and he would say, and he'd look me right in the eye and he'd say, you know, if you tell anybody You'll never see me again, and you'll live on the street, and your mom will die. What the fuck? I remember being like, okay, yeah, message received. Like, okay. Like, I got it. Like, it's okay. I would never. I was like, I would never. I remember saying, I would never, Dad. I won't ever. And I remember just being so complicit and soft and gentle, because if I were to have ever, I know this now. At the time, for the years I was still working through the wounding and like tending that, I had so much guilt and shame and resentment toward myself for not being able to keep myself safe. You know, I thought I'm in control. I was in control. Why did I let him do that? Why did I not say anything sooner? And it was because I was groomed from diapers I was told that this was, daddies do this to little girls. Daddies touch little girls like this. And little girls don't tell. It's normal. All daddies do this, but nobody talks about it. Daddies put things inside of little girls, and little girls like it, and it feels good. And he'd say, doesn't it feel good? And I would just be like, yeah, it feels good. I was this little puppet. Whatever he wanted me to say, I was going to say it. My body was literally dying on the inside, but I was like, yeah, I like it. And then this part's hard to understand. It's gross, but it's not for me to hold anymore, so I'm gonna say it. There were times where when you're being molested or raped, you have a physiological response in your body. Your body reacts because it's being stimulated, and you can have physical pleasure in your body because of the stimulation that's taking place. And I got real fucked up about that for a long time, because I remember feeling the orgasm in my little body and thinking that I don't think thinking came into the picture, but knowing that it felt good in my body made me feel like I did ask for it, that I did like it. And so that with that being fueled by my mom saying you liked it, that fucked me up for a little while, because yeah, my body responded in a way, and I knew that it felt good. And I had this shame around, it was all my fault because it did feel good. And then my dad would say, didn't you like it? And he would make me say I did, and that I wouldn't tell anybody, because this is what daddies do. And he'd say, not all mommies help like mommy does, mommy. Not all moms help like your mom does. He's like, she's special like that. And he would always reference that he knew she was the perfect mom for me. Of course she was. She couldn't talk. She wasn't going to say a thing. So when you're moving through all of this with the mind and the capacity of a child who I never knew safety. I never knew safety with my parents at all. And then on top of that, having my brother in the house, he was extremely abusive. So I had it from every angle. Each person in my house, I literally was just like, who's gonna do what, when? I see, okay, there's two of them. Where's the third one? Oh, I need eyes on all three. Like, I was just like this hyper fucked up little squirrel of a kid. I was just like, And I had delayed speech, delayed reading, delayed comprehension. I couldn't speak. I couldn't get the words out. I had a lisp. I still kind of have it, but I had a lisp really severely, and I would stutter, and not just stutter. When I would speak, my mouth would kind of go, like, kind of just shake whenever I was trying to say something. And it wasn't just when I was being asked something, it was when I was trying to express something to anyone in any kind. I would just kind of like, my jaw would kind of like I'm doing it right now, just like, and I would just get myself caught up, and I wouldn't be able to speak. I can remember so many times having this feeling in my body that was so at war with itself, so at war with itself, and I would want to speak up, and I would get in this moment where I would be like, I'm really mad. My dad would say no to me for something. Like I wanted to do something or I wanted to have something, and he would say no, and I would get mad, and I would have like a little tantrum about it. And I would say in myself, I would say, I hate him and I'm going to tell. And then I was like, I can't tell because it's going to hurt me. Like I had self-protection here. So, and then as soon as I had that, I remember that the feeling I'd get in my throat, it felt like pressure and tightening. Like, I used to take a ton of supplements at certain points in my life. I would get on these health kicks and I'd be like, I'm taking all these supplements. I'm going to fix my nutrition. And so I would take tons of pills, like tons of supplements, horse pills essentially. I'd swallow them and they'd get stuck in my throat. And I would have to eat something to get them to push it down. And that feeling always was like reminiscent of that feeling. I would get like this tightening and this like, I don't know, it was like awful. I remember, and then I would get this like heat wave that would come up the back of my neck. I would lose all voice. All voice would just go. I couldn't even say anything. And it would just completely stop. Just go voiceless. And I'd be like that for the rest of the day. And so it's no wonder that when I went to school finally, I was held back. I was held back in kindergarten. Yeah, I wouldn't talk. And when I did, I couldn't speak well. I couldn't focus enough to like learn how to read. I suffered tremendously in school, and it brought me a lot of shame because I felt stupid. I remember thinking, what if, and as a kid, I thought, what if I'm like my mom, but I can hear, but I'm not smart like my mom, because my dad constantly would say, your mom's not smart. She doesn't have this. And he would be like, she doesn't have it up here. And I was like, okay, because I wondered why she was the way she was. As I got old enough to understand something was wrong, like with word and comprehension, I'd be like, why is she like this, And he's like, she's, mom's retarded, he'd say, and mom's not up here, or she doesn't know how to do things. She doesn't know anything, And he'd kind of, in his own way, that was him being compassionate. She doesn't know anything. And he'd just kind of skate over it. And I was like, oh. And I was like, well, she's my mom, so maybe I could be like that. And I was scared because I didn't want to live like her. I didn't want to be, I could see how vulnerable she was. I knew that she was. As much as I knew she was preying on me, I knew she was also vulnerable at a young age. But I didn't have the capacity at a young age to have as much compassion for her then as I do now. Now it's totally different. It's night and day. The relationship I have with my mom now is, I never thought I would get here. I'll be quite honest with you. I don't think I ever thought it would get to this point where I would actually say, I love her. I love her dearly. I have so much love in my heart for my mom. I would say 5 years ago, I still struggled with loving her outwardly. I remember talking to my ex-husband and saying, I wish my mom and I were close, but honestly, I don't know what that would even look like. I don't feel close to her. And then I would tell him, like, I feel like she was a nanny that like hated me. And he's like, he couldn't understand that because, he, to the level he could, he wasn't someone you could have a conversation with. He wasn't introspective, and he wasn't capable of having deeper conversations. It's just, he lived very surface level. Things had to be real light and nothing deep. It couldn't be deep. So I remember and he lost his mother too. So he was like, how could you not want to be with your mom? I lost my mom. I wish I had more time with her. And I'm like, I totally get that. But you and I had different relationships, and our mothers were different people, and we're different people. So, but yeah, 5 years ago, I still was in a place where I was like forcing myself to go visit her every once in a while, because I'd be like, oh, I don't want her to die and not have seen her in a while. Like, I don't want that. Like, there was always this pull in me that was like, I really want something with my mom, whatever that would look like. I don't know, but I do. I want it. And then I would go visit her, and oh, I didn't know we were going there. Okay. my ex-husband and I, we struggled with infertility. I could get pregnant, but I couldn't stay pregnant. And so my mom would ask me over and over, every time I did go see her, she would say, when are you going to have a baby? And I remember early on, I was like, I was pregnant and then I lost the baby. And she looked at me and she goes, like I failed. She was like, you better do it again. And I was like, fuck this bitch. Like, no compassion. Like, I get that. Like, I never received compassion from her, but there's always that hope. I think children hold on to the hope that even though we can be mad at our parents, and boy, let me tell you, I was mad at her for a great deal of time, we still, if we're honest with ourselves deep down, we really want our parents to love us deeply in a way that we can feel it, in a way that is expressed that we can actually receive it. And so I always held on to hope that like maybe my mom could be really warm toward me and we could have something at some point. But she would always meet me with, and she'd ask me time and time again, like, are you gonna have a baby? And I'd say, eventually I stopped telling her about all my miscarriages and I was just like, no, not pregnant. And she'd always be this like, I wanna be a grandma. And I was like, and in my head I'm thinking, because you were such a great mom, right? Like I was still pissed and angry and resentful toward her. Like, we're talking 15 years ago, 10 years, about that. And gosh, no, wait. Yeah, 15, because COVID is 7, so it was way before COVID. Isn't it crazy? COVID was that long ago. Feels like a couple years, but it feels like a couple years, but also it feels like 30 years. Isn't it time funny like that? So, again, I realize I'm all over the place. I'm just, as it comes up, it's coming out. It's coming up and out. And that's what I'm doing. So, because we weren't close with my aunts and uncles that lived in Michigan, my dad's family, as his family got older, they all kind of scattered to the four winds. I think there was like, I had an uncle in California, uncle in Georgia, an aunt in Georgia. I want to say maybe 1 or 2 more in the South. And then there were 2, I think my dad was the 3rd youngest. I think that's right. And so he and his 2 younger brothers were both still in Michigan, and then his parents. And so we didn't have a relationship with any of them. And so there was this, as my dad started getting more and more, how do I want to put that? As he continued to groom me to take over all of my mother's responsibilities, not just his sexual pleasure and his molestation and things like that. He was like, you can start doing all the things that mom does around the house. And he's like, so he would say this to me for like, it felt like a year. He just constantly kept grooming me toward like, we don't need mom. He's like, you don't like her, do you? And I'd be like, nope. Because he wanted me to say that. And I was like, yeah, I don't like her. And he's like, what about your brother? And I was like, not really. I could live without him too, because I could. He was awful to me. Like, I was a kid who was being abused by all the people in my home, and I was being asked by the biggest abuser, who was also the kindest person to me. And I know that's crazy to hear, but my dad had this way of being so good with me when he wasn't sexually abusing me. He was good to me. He would take me to the park, and we would go, back then the slides were metal, and he would take waxed paper. This is a very lovely memory of mine, and I've never let it go through the years. It was another glimmer of joy for me that I held on to because I had to. I didn't have many, so I had collected these trinkets of these small moments that brought me a little bit of happiness. And so my dad would take me to the park, and he'd bring wax paper, and he'd go up on the top of the slide, and he would go down the slide, but he would like rub wax paper all over the metal slide so it would be like waxed. I don't know if anyone else has ever done that, but it was so much fun. you'd go super fast, and you know, the slide was pretty tall and it was metal and just probably, it was super unsafe, but you know, it was fun. We'd go down the slide, and by the time we'd get to the very bottom and you'd shoot way out, and you'd be like, again. So we would do that. We would go to the park and do that. It was a blast. And every once in a while, little small treats, like he would take me to the bakery and get me a donut, and I just felt like, whoa, go to the park, go on the slide, have a donut, my life is amazing. You know, I had to put what was going on with me in a box. When it wasn't happening in that moment, I put it in a box. I did. I had to. Otherwise, I don't know if I'd be here today. I don't know what my life would look like if I didn't have the gift of my subconscious keeping me safe. So, super grateful for that. Yeah. I'm going to put a pin in it right here. I appreciate everyone for watching and staying along with my journey. I thought that in sharing, it was going to help a couple people. When I first posted my first video, I was like, it's time to do this, you know. I was helping one-on-one clients with it, and it was being helpful. Like, I was attracting people who had similar pasts as mine, and when I would work with them and I would share what had happened to me, it was helpful to them. They would find something that was helpful in my story. And I had a client say, you know, you should share this with everybody because, you know, look how much you've helped. And they would say me and and name other people. And I was like, yeah, I should. I was like, it's time. I'm okay with sharing it. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to share it. Okay. Yeah. And I made the video like a week before I posted it. And the day after I made the video, I was all in my feels about it. Like, I was like, man, I made a video talking about this intense stuff that I used to guard. I used to guard it with like, with everything I had. Like, nobody was going to know that about me. Yes, my clients were, but they weren't telling everybody. It was like, you know, it felt safe to share with clients because it's a beautiful space to be in, and the clients that I have in my life are beautiful souls. So I'm like, I feel safe to share it with them. And then I made the video, and then I don't know when I was going to post it. And so then when I had it, and I hadn't yet done it, I haven't even like looked at it yet. I just had made the video, I hadn't even watched it. And the very next day I'm going for a walk, and I'm like, I got big feelings right now. Like, it was just swimming in my body, all this energy, all these feelings that were like asking to come up, to be heard, to be seen, to be witnessed, to be allowed. And I'm like, okay, we're having this is happening. I'm out on my walk, and I used to have labs. I used to have black labs, Jelly Bean and Walnut. And they were like my pride and joy and my sweet, sweet boys. And they lived quite a long time. My oldest, Jelly Bean, he lived to be he was almost 15. No, he was almost 16. Yeah. He died in the summer and his birthday was in the fall. So he was going on 16. And he passed in 2024. And then last summer, my Walnut, my sweet boy, whew, he passed, and he was 14, gonna be 14. That one's still fresh for me. If you have animals, you know. I had a bond with Wally. Ooh. I'm on fire all of a sudden. Oof. Okay. Wally was like my soul dog. I swear he was a child that I was meant to have, but it didn't work out, so he got put into a dog's body. I truly believe that. So I lost Wally last summer. And that was really hard. I had been through so much in my life, but losing my dogs was like, was up there. And so I had lost Wally last summer, and I have really been missing the comfort of my pets because they've always been so important to me. I'm still not somebody who has a large circle of friends. I'm just a very quiet person, and I kind of stay to myself. And I do go to yoga, and I have some friends I know through yoga, but I keep to myself. And it stems from, it wasn't safe to be around people as a kid, because what if I would have told somebody what was going on? And there's something I'll share in another video that made me want to not have friends. And also, there became a time that other kids weren't allowed to play with me because I came from a weird family. Save that for another video, but it's too big to talk about right now. I'm giving Wally the space that he needs because that's important for me. So I'm walking, and I'm missing having a dog really bad. And I kind of needed the comfort. And I was like, fuck, I really miss my boys, and I really wish I could walk a dog right now, and just like, I miss the ritual of having a dog. I do. All of it, the love, all the joy that they bring, how much richness they bring into your experience. I even miss picking up poop. Like, I don't miss certain things that most people would think are exciting, but I miss all of it. I loved being a dog mom a lot. And so I'm walking, and I'm like, maybe I'm not ready for another dog in my life right now. So I was like, I should post to my local community page, like, hey, if anyone's looking for a dog walker, if there's an elderly couple that has a dog that would like to go on walks, but they can't walk them, something like that, like free dog walker. And I was like, I should do that. Yeah, that's a good idea. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that tomorrow. And so I'm like, yeah, that's going to be good. Yeah, it's going to be great. So I'm still on my walk, and then I get home, and then the next day, I had an appointment to take my car in I had a new windshield put in. I had a rock hit me on the highway, so my windshield had a crack, so I had to have my windshield replaced, but then the rearview mirror needed to be fixed because it didn't get put in properly. It's kind of wonky, and I was like, I got it, and I had to get it in because I didn't have a rearview mirror for like a whole day, and it was chaos. You need a rearview mirror. So I called the shop, and they're like, yeah, you can come in right now, but we close at such and such, which was an hour from now. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's 15-minute drive. I'm like, I can get there. And so I get in my car, and I'm driving, and I go past, I'm probably like 3 blocks away from my place. And I'm like, what am I looking at? I don't have a rearview mirror. I passed this dog in the street, and I'm like, that was a dog in the street. And I try to look at my rearview mirror. I'm like, fuck, I don't have a rearview mirror. So I turn my whole body, and I'm like, that dog is just standing in the middle of the street. This won't do. So I'm like, I turn around, and I go and I park in this parking lot. And I'm like, well, I lost the dog. Where is he? And I'm like, okay, I'm looking. I'm like, oh, there he is. He's probably like 300 yards away. And I'm like, come here, buddy. And he just runs over to me. And he runs in and gives me this. He puts he's a standard poodle, black standard poodle. Melt my heart. He comes in and he loves me. He's loving on me. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. I look at his collar. He doesn't have anything. He has a license ID number, which is, you have to call like the local animal shelter, and they have like a record, right? Like it's licensed. So I was like, well, let me see what I can do. And I'm like, I end up taking him to the police department because it was close by. And they're like, you can't have a dog in here, ma'am. And I'm like, okay, but he's missing and it's in the neighborhood. So, and they're like, no, get him out of here and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm like, oh darn, I get to keep the dog a little bit longer. And so, because I have to get to my appointment. And so I'm driving, and I get to, I'm like, you're coming with me. He jumps in my car, and I'm driving to my appointment to get my mirror fixed. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, I wanted so badly to have the comfort of a dog, and God's like, here you go. And God does that a lot for me. He puts animals in my path a lot that I get to have experiences with, and it's beautiful, and I'm so grateful. Because animals are like my favorite. They're so pure. They don't have a bad intention in them, not one. Pure love. And so I end up with this dog, and I call the animal shelter, and I'm like, give them the license. They're like, oh yeah, we'll call the owner. And it was going on 5 o'clock at this point. And they're like, well, we don't know what's going to happen. Are you okay to keep the dog, or you want to bring him to the pound? And I'm like, oh, we will not be bringing this dog to the pound. Yes, he will stay with me. And I was like, sleepover. I was so excited. And he reminded me of my walnut too. A lot. There was a lot of similarity. He was his own boy, but he also reminded me of my boy. And that was beautiful. So he ended up having a sleepover, and it was freaking amazing. He was like a sweet, lovey. He just jumped on the couch, got comfy. I didn't have dog food, so I cooked him a ribeye, and he loved it. I cut it up for him, hand fed him a little bit, and he was like, oh, this is good. And he was such a gentle eater. It was like freaking amazing. And so the next morning, I still haven't gotten a call yet. And then midday, like 1 o'clock or something, they call, and they're like, yeah, the owner wants to connect and, exchange. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I can walk him over, because the owner gave me the address. It was like 2 blocks from my house. I ended up walking the dog over there and giving the dog back to them. And they're like, oh, we want to give you a reward. And I'm like, honestly, I could never accept that. Like, I am grateful to have found him when I did. Like, I feel really, I don't want a reward. Like, and I was like, well, but could you do me one favor? And they're like, anything. And I'm like, would it be okay? And they're an older couple, they're elderly. And I said, I wanted to walk an elderly couple's dog. And they're like, I'm like, could I walk him every once in a while? Could I come by and just walk him for you? And they're like, oh my God, sweetheart, that would be amazing. They're like, we would love for you to do that. He would love that. He never gets to go on walks. And I was like, I was so happy. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so I have that beautiful, sweet boy that I get to walk now. And I know God gave him to me in that moment because, well, obviously he needed me and I needed him. We both needed each other in that moment. And that was a beautiful gift. And I was so happy. And so I guess I say all of this to you to say, there's glimmers of hope and kindness and gifts from God everywhere, all day long. Do you notice them? Sit with it. When something good happens, feel it. Don't rush past it. Recognize that it's what you needed and God gave it to you. It came into your experience because you needed it and it needed you. It's beautiful. It might not be a dog for you, but for me, it's a dog. And so just sit with yourself when things happen and say, wow, that was amazing. The more you notice the good things in your life, the more good things are going to happen. And I say this from a place of safety. There were so many years of my life I didn't have the capacity to recognize goodness because I was so afraid of the next shoe dropping that I wasn't capable of staying in the present moment and being capable to feel the goodness that was being shown to me all around me. But now I am. I have found safety in my body, which allows me to stay present and allows me to see the goodness that God has given me every single day. I love it. And so thank you for listening. Thank you. This is so helpful to me, and I hope it's helpful to other people. We heal out loud, and we heal in community. So I'm grateful. Bye.